Dr. Amanda Mitchell hadn't slept in 36 hours, but the readings on her screen had sent adrenaline coursing through her veins, making exhaustion irrelevant. The Deep Space Network's radar array was picking up something she'd never seen before, an object moving at speeds that defied conventional physics, performing maneuvers that should have torn any known material apart. "Control, are you seeing this?" Her fingers flew across the keyboard, tracking the object's descent trajectory. "Whatever this is, it's not breaking up in the atmosphere. It's steering." "Confirmed, Dr. Mitchell." The response came from her supervisor, Thomas Reed, his usual calm voice tinged with uncertainty. "Pentagon's been notified. They're saying it's not one of ours." Amanda leaned closer to her monitor, watching as the object's heat signature pulsed in patterns too regular to be random. "This isn't a meteor, and it's definitely not space debris." She pulled up another screen, analyzing the electromagnetic readings. "It's generating some kind of field. Wait, there's a second signature." The new reading appeared briefly at the edge of their detection range, massive and ominous, before vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Whatever had chased their mysterious visitor seemed content to let Earth's gravity finish the job. "Impact projection." Thomas's voice cracked slightly. "Atacama Desert, remote section." Amanda was already grabbing her go-bag from under her desk. She packed it 6 years ago, hoping for exactly this moment. "Minimal population risk, but we need to move fast. The energy readings are off the charts." "Mitchell, wait for the response team." Thomas began, but Amanda was already halfway to the door. "I'll meet them there," she called back. "And Tom, call Nellis Air Force Base. Tell them to prep the hypersonic. They owe me a favor from the Quantum Resonance Project." 2 hours later, Amanda stood at the edge of a crater that stretched nearly a kilometer wide, her hazmat suit's sensors struggling to process the data they were receiving. The object, clearly artificial, had broken into dozens of pieces upon impact, but what remained defied explanation. Fragments of what appeared to be hull material lay scattered across the desert floor, their surfaces rippling with patterns of light that seemed to respond to movement. "Ma'am, we need to establish a perimeter." A military officer approached, his own suit marked with colonel's insignia. "These radiation readings aren't radiation at all, Colonel," Amanda interrupted, her eyes fixed on a particular fragment that seemed to pulse in sync with her heartbeat. "At least, not any kind we've classified before." She took a careful step forward, her hand outstretched toward the piece. "Dr. Mitchell, protocol states." The fragment moved, just slightly, just enough to catch the light differently, but Amanda saw it rotate toward her hand like a flower turning toward the sun. Her breath caught in her throat as decades of scientific training warred with what her eyes were telling her. "Colonel," she said softly, "I need you to record everything you're seeing." She took another step forward. "Because I don't think this was a crash. I think this was a delivery." The piece she'd been watching suddenly flared with brilliant blue light, matching the rhythm of her pulse exactly. Other fragments across the crater began to respond in kind, creating a rippling wave of illumination that spread outward like a growing web. "Get me a secure line to command," she ordered, unable to tear her eyes away from the display. "And clear this site of all non-essential personnel. Whatever this is, it's not just active. It's aware." As the sun set over the Atacama, casting long shadows across the wreckage, Amanda Mitchell stood at the edge of humanity's greatest discovery, her mind racing with possibilities. She didn't know it yet, but she was right about one thing. This was a delivery. But what had been delivered wasn't just technology. It was humanity's invitation to join a game being played on a cosmic scale, where the stakes were nothing less than the future of our species. And the clock was already ticking. "This is impossible," Dr. Marcus Reeves muttered, staring at the test results for the 12th time. "The atomic structure keeps shifting." Amanda barely heard him. She was focused on the fist-sized fragment suspended in the containment chamber, watching as it rippled with internal light. 3 days had passed since the crash, and while other scientists maintained their distance, running remote tests from behind layers of shielding, she felt an inexplicable urge to get closer. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've ever recorded, Marcus continued, his voice tight with frustration. Every time we think we've mapped its properties, it changes. It's like it's adapting. Or responding, Amanda murmured. She pressed her hand against the chamber's transparent wall, and the fragment's glow intensified. Look at that. It's not random. Dr. Mitchell, we need to maintain protocols, Marcus began, but Amanda was already keying in the containment release sequence. Amanda, stop. The chamber hissed as it opened. Before anyone could stop her, Amanda reached in and picked up the fragment. The room erupted in chaos. Alarms blared, guards rushed forward, and Marcus shouted for emergency containment. But Amanda stood transfixed, watching as the material in her hands transformed. The surface, previously smooth and metallic, began to flow like liquid mercury, forming intricate patterns that pulsed in perfect synchronization with her heartbeat. Everyone, stay back, she commanded, her voice cutting through the panic. Look at this. It's not hurting me. It's communicating. The patterns grew more complex, spiraling outward in fractal designs that seemed to carry meaning. As Amanda's fingers traced the surface, new configurations emerged, responding to her touch like a living thing. Get me a microscope, she ordered. And someone call Dr. Zhang from quantum biology. She needs to see this. Hours later, in a hastily assembled lab, Dr. Zhang's eyes widened as she studied the cellular samples. This is unprecedented. The material isn't just responding to your bioelectric field. It's attempting to integrate with it. Look at how your cells are interacting with the surface. Amanda nodded, watching the real-time footage. It's like it was designed for human contact. But why would alien technology be calibrated for human biology? A sudden surge of energy pulsed through the fragment, causing nearby equipment to spark. Amanda gasped as images flooded her mind, not quite visions, but impressions of knowledge, like memories she didn't know she had. It's not calibrated for us, she whispered, understanding dawning. It's evolving for us. Every interaction teaches it more about human physiology. She turned to Dr. Zhang. We need blood samples from different human populations, as many as we can get, and I need unrestricted access to the crash site. The military won't like that, Marcus warned. They're already talking about weaponization. They don't understand what we're dealing with, Amanda interrupted. This isn't just advanced technology. It's something that chose us. And I think, she hesitated, knowing how it would sound. I think it's been waiting for humanity to find it. Later that night, alone in the lab, Amanda studied the fragment again. The patterns had grown more complex, forming what looked like circuit diagrams, molecular structures, and mathematical equations, but with configurations she'd never seen before. What are you trying to tell us? She whispered. As if in response, the fragment pulsed once, brilliantly, and a new pattern emerged. Amanda's heart nearly stopped as she recognized it. A double helix, but with modifications that seemed to suggest possibilities that went far beyond anything in current genetic science. She reached for her phone, dialing the secure line to command. This is Dr. Mitchell. We need to expand the research team immediately. And sir, you might want to sit down for this next part. As she explained her discoveries, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Somewhere out there, whatever had chased the ship to Earth was still watching, and humanity's window to understand this gift was closing fast. The real question was, would we be ready when they came back? The underground facility hummed with activity at 3 a.m., but Amanda wasn't at her assigned station. Instead, she stood in the restricted testing chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of DNA sequences that spiraled through the air like ghostly serpents. A week of secret night shifts had led to this moment. Running final comparison, Dr. Zhang announced through the intercom. Are you sure about this, Amanda? The amount of radiation. Is within acceptable limits. Amanda finished, her eyes fixed on the largest fragment yet, suspended in a magnetic field before her. Start the sequence. The chamber filled with a low hum as specialized equipment began bombarding the alien material with precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. Amanda's previous tests had shown that human DNA caused subtle changes in the material structure, but something was missing. Tonight, she was testing a theory that had come to her in a dream. Energy levels at 60%, John reported. First DNA sequence integration beginning. Now. The fragment's surface rippled, patterns flowing like quicksilver as it responded to the human genetic code being transmitted through the field. But Amanda barely noticed. Her attention was fixed on a small vial of blood in her hand. Her blood. Levels at 80%. John's voice held a note of concern. Amanda, the pattern recognition software is picking up something odd. These sequences, they're starting to look like language, Amanda breathed, taking a step forward. It's not just responding to our DNA. It's trying to tell us something. Before John could protest, Amanda broke the seal on the containment field. Amanda, no. The blood vial shattered as Amanda pressed her cut palm directly against the fragment's surface. The effect was instantaneous and spectacular. The material flared with blinding light, and the holographic displays exploded with data as the fragment underwent a massive transformation. Through the searing pain in her hand, Amanda watched in awe as the material reshaped itself, forming complex geometric patterns that expanded outward like a blooming flower. But these weren't random shapes. They were blueprints, schematics, and what looked like star charts, all encoded within the material structure. My God, John whispered over the intercom. The pattern recognition software, it's saying these are instructions. Billions of lines of code, encoded in a format that can only be activated by human DNA. Amanda couldn't respond. Her mind was overwhelmed with information flowing directly from the fragment through her bloodied hand. She saw flashes of distant worlds, advanced civilizations, and a war that spanned galaxies. But more than that, she saw purpose, the true reason this technology had found its way to Earth. It's not just instructions, she managed to gasp. It's a warning. And a gift. The pain in her hand intensified as the fragment continued its transformation. They knew they were coming. The Nexus. They knew humanity would need this. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. On every screen, data streams shifted to show a massive gravitational distortion forming just beyond Mars' orbit. Whatever was coming, it had arrived sooner than anyone expected. Dr. Mitchell, a military officer, burst into the observation room above. We're detecting multiple objects entering the solar system. They're massive. But Amanda barely heard him. The fragment had shown her one final image, a vision of Earth surrounded by a shield of living metal, powered by the very thing that made humans unique. Our ability to adapt, to evolve, to overcome. The original creators hadn't just given humanity a weapon. They'd given us the keys to our own potential. Get me a secure line to every major research facility on the planet, she ordered, her voice steady despite the blood dripping from her hand. And contact the UN Security Council. Tell them. She paused, looking at the transformed fragment that now pulsed with the combined rhythm of every human heartbeat in the room. Tell them we're not alone anymore. But we're ready. Above them, in the cold vastness of space, the first ships of the Nexus fleet emerged from hyperspace, their weapons primed to eradicate another civilization that dared to claim the forbidden technology. They expected to find a primitive species, helpless against their advanced weaponry. What they found instead was humanity, standing on the brink of its greatest transformation. And we were done being primitive. The United Nations General Assembly had never been this quiet. On the massive screen behind the podium, a transmission from the Nexus fleet commander played in an endless loop, the aliens' crystalline features distorting with what looked unsettlingly like contempt. Your species has accessed forbidden knowledge. Surrender the artifacts, or face extinction. You have 6 Earth hours to comply. Amanda stood at the podium, her bandaged hand gripping the sides as she faced the representatives of every major nation. The emergency session had been called minutes after the first electromagnetic pulse from the Nexus fleet knocked out power across the Pacific Rim. "They're lying," she stated firmly, her voice carrying through the silent chamber. "This isn't about protecting the galaxy from dangerous technology. The Nexus fears what humanity will become once we fully understand what we've been given." "And what exactly have we been given, Dr. Mitchell?" The Chinese representative leaned forward. "Because right now, all we have is a hostile alien fleet threatening global annihilation." Amanda nodded to her assistant, who activated a holographic display. The room gasped as a 3-dimensional image of the transformed fragment appeared, its surface now covered in flowing equations and diagrams. "This technology wasn't created by the Nexus," Amanda explained, manipulating the hologram with her uninjured hand. "It came from a civilization far older, one that saw something in humanity that the Nexus fears. Our potential." "Potential for what?" the Russian delegate demanded. "Evolution." Amanda expanded the hologram, revealing the DNA sequences embedded within the material structure. "This technology doesn't just respond to human biology. It enhances it. It's designed to merge with us, to help us become something more. The Nexus isn't here to protect the galaxy. They're here to prevent our ascension." The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates argued in dozens of languages. Amanda waited, watching the timer counting down the remaining hours. Finally, the Secretary General called for order. "Dr. Mitchell, you're suggesting we refuse their demands." His voice was grave. "Their fleet has already demonstrated power we cannot hope to match." "That's where you're wrong." Amanda's eyes blazed with conviction. "The pulse that knocked out our power grid, it wasn't an attack. It was a test. They were trying to determine if we'd already merged with the technology. They're not here because they think they'll win easily. They're here because they're afraid we might actually succeed." She pressed her bandaged hand against the podium surface, and suddenly every screen in the chamber lit up with new data. "The material doesn't just provide defensive capabilities. It shows us how to recognize and counter every weapon in the Nexus arsenal. They're not gods. They're just bullies who've been suppressing emerging civilizations for millennia." The UK representative stood. "Even if what you're saying is true, how can we possibly prepare for war in 6 hours?" Amanda smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "Because we've already started." She nodded to her assistant again, and the hologram shifted to show live feeds from research facilities worldwide. In each one, scientists and military personnel worked with transformed fragments of the alien material, which responded to their touch like living metal. "Every hour we delay gives them time to bring in reinforcements," Amanda continued. "We need to act now, while we still have the element of surprise. The choice is simple. We can surrender and watch them strip away humanity's future, or we can stand and fight for our right to evolve." The Secretary General studied the countdown timer, now showing less than 5 hours. "Dr. Mitchell, if we follow your recommendation, and we're wrong, then humanity dies fighting for its future instead of surrendering it." Amanda's voice carried absolute conviction. "But we're not wrong. The original creators chose us for a reason. It's time we proved them right." As the UN Security Council prepared to vote, Amanda's phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Zhang. Second wave of Nexus ships detected approaching from the Kuiper Belt, much bigger than the first. Amanda closed her eyes briefly. They were running out of time. But maybe, just maybe, humanity was about to show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that had spent its entire existence overcoming impossible odds. The vote was about to begin, and with it, humanity's greatest test. The lab's emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the testing chamber as Amanda studied the readouts from her latest simulation. 3 hours until the Nexus deadline, and they were still missing something crucial. Previous test subjects showed 43% neural synchronization. Dr. Zhang reported, her voice tense. "Still not enough for weapons-grade response." Amanda ran her fingers through her disheveled hair, staring at the transformed fragment suspended in the center of the room. They'd made progress. The material now responded to human neural patterns, but it wasn't enough. The Nexus ships would tear through their defenses like paper. "What are we missing?" she muttered, pacing the chamber. Her bandaged hand throbbed where the material had merged with her tissue during the first breakthrough. That's when it hit her. Fear, Amanda whispered, stopping mid-stride. Adrenaline. Fight or flight. She turned to Zhang. "We've been trying to control it with calm, focused minds. But what if that's exactly wrong? What if it needs our survival instinct?" Zhang's eyes widened. "Amanda, you can't be suggesting. Hook me into the primary fragment. Full neural interface. That much direct exposure could kill you." Zhang protested. "The energy readings alone are exactly what we need." Amanda was already moving to the interface chair, pulling electrodes from the medical cart. "The material doesn't just want our thoughts. It wants our will to survive." Before anyone could stop her, Amanda ripped off her bandage, revealing the silvery threads that had spread from her palm into her bloodstream. She pressed her transformed hand against the fragment and initiated the neural link sequence. Pain exploded through her consciousness. Every nerve ending screamed as the material tried to interface directly with her central nervous system. On the monitors, her vital signs went haywire. Shutting it down, Zhang reached for the emergency override. "No." Amanda's voice was strained but determined. Look at the synchronization readings." The numbers were climbing rapidly. 50%, 65%, 80%. The fragment had begun to pulse with a brilliant blue light, spreading outward in waves that matched Amanda's racing heartbeat. Through the haze of agony, Amanda felt something new. Not just connection, transformation. The material wasn't just responding to her fear and determination. It was amplifying them, channeling them into pure energy. "Neural bridge established," the computer announced. "Synchronization at 97% and holding." Amanda opened her eyes, but she wasn't just seeing the lab anymore. She saw everything. Energy patterns, structural weaknesses, possible futures branching out like a cosmic web. The material had become an extension of her consciousness, and through it, she understood. "It's not about controlling it," she gasped, as silver threads spread across her skin. "It's about letting it control us." Together. With a thought, she shaped the material into a weapon, then a shield, then back again. Each transformation was instant, perfect, guided by instinct rather than calculation. The fragment wasn't just technology anymore. It was becoming part of humanity's evolution. "My God," Zhang breathed, staring at the readings. "The material, it's rewriting your DNA. But not randomly. It's optimizing it, enhancing." A distant explosion rocked the facility. Above ground, the Nexus had launched their first probing attack, testing Earth's defenses. Amanda stood, silver light coursing through her veins. "Get me command. Now." Her voice resonated with newfound power. "And find me volunteers. Soldiers, pilots, anyone with combat experience. The material doesn't need scientists. It needs warriors." "Amanda." Zhang's voice shook slightly. "What exactly did you see in there?" Amanda turned to her friend, her eyes now flickering with the same ethereal light as the fragment. "I saw our future, and I saw why the Nexus is so afraid." She smiled, but there was steel behind it. "Because we're not just going to survive this fight. We're going to become something entirely new." As if in response, every piece of the alien material in the facility pulsed with brilliant light, calling out to the humans who would become its partners in the coming evolution. The next phase of human history was about to begin. Marine Corps Captain Sarah Reynolds stood at attention in the underground facility, trying not to stare at Dr. Mitchell's silvery skin. Around her, 30 other elite soldiers from various nations waited, each chosen for their exceptional combat records and psychological stability. "The process isn't pretty," Amanda explained, her luminescent eyes scanning the group. But we're out of time for gentle solutions. The Nexus fleet has begun targeting our military installations. As if to emphasize her point, another distant explosion rattled dust from the ceiling. The aliens had started their systematic dismantling of Earth's conventional defenses. "Show them," Dr. Zhang urged. Amanda nodded and stepped forward. The silver threads beneath her skin pulsed, and suddenly she was encased in flowing metallic armor that emerged from nowhere, weapons materializing at her command. The soldiers gasped collectively. "This isn't just a weapon system," Amanda continued, her voice resonating with otherworldly harmony. "It's evolution. Your DNA will merge with the material, creating something entirely new. But it requires absolute commitment. There's no going back." Captain Reynolds stepped forward first. "Ma'am, with respect, we're already dead if we don't try. I volunteer." The transformation chambers had been hastily constructed, but they worked. Reynolds screamed as the liquid material flowed into her bloodstream, but she didn't back down. When she emerged, her eyes glowed with the same inner light as Amanda's. "Holy shit," Reynolds whispered, watching silver patterns flow across her skin. Then she smiled. A predator's smile. "When do we start killing aliens?" The process repeated across the globe. In Russia, their best fighter pilots merged with the material, creating neural links with their aircraft that transformed them into living weapons. Chinese submarine commanders found they could sense ocean currents directly, becoming one with their vessels. British special forces discovered they could phase through solid matter. Each human adapted differently, the material responding to their unique skills and instincts. It wasn't just copying their abilities, it was enhancing them, creating capabilities that perfectly matched each operator's combat style. "Neural sync complete on Test Group 7. Dr. Zhang reported, watching as another squad emerged from transformation. "But Amanda, the Nexus energy readings, they're shifting. I think they know what we're doing." Amanda stood on the command center's observation deck, watching as the newly transformed soldiers trained. Reynolds had already mastered phasing her armor through concrete walls while maintaining full combat capability. Others were discovering abilities that defied physics itself. "Let them know," Amanda replied, her voice hard. They thought they were hunting primitive savages. Time they learned what humanity does when backed into a corner. A young Army Ranger demonstrated his new capabilities, shifting from solid to energy state and back, his weapons following suit. The material didn't just respond to conscious commands. It anticipated needs, adapted to threats, evolved with each engagement. "Mom," a communications officer burst in. "Nexus ships are launching some kind of pods toward the surface. Thousands of them." Amanda watched the tactical display, seeing the invasion force descend. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Across the globe, transformed human defenders took up positions. Reynolds' squad moved to their deployment zones, their armor shifting and adapting for urban combat. The Russian pilots launched in aircraft that were now more living metal than machine. "Dr. Mitchell," Reynolds called over the comm, her voice thrumming with power. "Permission to engage." Amanda looked at Dr. Zhang, who nodded grimly. The transformation process was spreading faster than expected, each new subject adapting more quickly than the last. Humanity wasn't just accepting the change. We were embracing it, improving it, making it our own. "All units," Amanda broadcast globally, "show them what humanity does best." She felt the response through the neural network that now connected all transformed soldiers, a surge of fierce joy and determination that made the material sing with power. "We adapt. We overcome. We evolve." The words resonated through every transformed defender. "And we never, ever surrender." Above them, the Nexus invasion force descended, unaware they were about to face something unprecedented. Humanity unleashed, transformed, and very, very angry. The real war was about to begin. The sky above New York burned with plasma fire as Captain Reynolds phased through a Nexus walker's energy shield, her transformed armor adapting instantly to the alien technology's frequency. Inside her head, the neural network hummed with battlefield data from transformed soldiers worldwide. Their shields can't handle rapid frequency shifts. She broadcasted to the network as her weapons materialized, perfectly calibrated to the walker's weak points. Hit them in 3-second pulses, then switch patterns. The walker collapsed as Reynolds' squad executed the technique flawlessly. Across the city, other transformed soldiers adapted the strategy, turning the aliens' superior technology against them. Multiple breaches in Beijing. The neural network flared with urgent signals. Amanda's voice cut through the chaos. Chinese squadron, engage rapid response protocols. Through the shared consciousness, Reynolds watched in awe as transformed Chinese fighters demonstrated their own evolution of the technology. Their armor had developed a hive mind capability, allowing entire squadrons to move as one organism. Nexus dropships fell from the sky as the coordinated defense overwhelmed their targeting systems. They're not used to this. Amanda's thoughts resonated through the network. They expected blind panic, not organized resistance. Push the advantage. In orbit, transformed Russian pilots engaged the Nexus fleet directly. Their fighters, now more living metal than machine, danced through space with impossible agility. The material had merged with both pilots and vessels, creating hybrid entities that could predict and counter alien attack patterns before they formed. Fascinating. One pilot's thoughts echoed through the network. Their ships are actually afraid. The metal can sense it. A massive energy surge lit up the neural network's tactical display. The Nexus flagship had activated its primary weapon, targeting No Raid's underground facility. But they were too late. Reynolds watched through shared consciousness as Amanda stepped onto the facility's roof, her transformed form blazing with silver light. The material flowing through her veins had evolved far beyond its original design, responding to human creativity and determination in ways its creators never imagined. The flagship's beam struck, and Amanda caught it. The network exploded with shared sensation as she channeled the energy through her transformed body, redirecting it through the neural web that connected all transformed soldiers. Across the globe, transformed defenders became living conductors, turning the Nexus' own power against them in a devastating display of synchronized warfare. Target their command and control systems. Amanda's order rang through the network. They think as one. Make it their weakness. Reynolds led her squad up the side of a skyscraper, armor flowing like liquid mercury, as they engaged a group of Nexus elites. The aliens' crystalline bodies shattered under weapons that adapted faster than their armor could respond. Through the network, she felt other battles reaching their climax. British Special Forces had developed stealth capabilities that made them literally impossible to predict, appearing inside Nexus ships to destroy them from within. Australian defenders had merged with their environment, turning the very landscape into a weapon. Their fleet is breaking formation, Amanda announced, her consciousness touching each defender's mind. They'd never seen anything like this. Weapons that evolve during combat, humans who adapt faster than their tactical AI can compute, push them back. The Nexus commander's desperate transmission echoed through captured communication channels. This is impossible. The technology was meant to enhance. Not this. That's humanity's secret, Amanda replied on all frequencies, her voice carrying the combined strength of every transformed defender. We don't just use tools. We transform them. We improve them. We make them part of us. Reynolds watched through the neural network as the Nexus fleet began its retreat, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos. But more importantly, she felt the change in her fellow soldiers. Not just victory, but evolution. The material hadn't just made them stronger. It had made them more human, amplifying the very traits that made our species unique. As the last Nexus ships fled Earth's orbit, Amanda's thoughts touched each defender's mind. They'll be back, with more ships, better weapons, new tactics, but they'll find the same truth again. Reynolds completed the thought, feeling every transformed soldier do the same. You don't pick a fight with humanity unless you're ready to face something that evolves faster than you can kill it. The first battle was over. Humanity's new era had begun. 6 months after the Nexus retreat, Amanda stood before the transformed hull of the original crashed ship, now installed in humanity's first evolutionary research center. The artifact had changed as much as they had, its surface constantly shifting with new patterns and possibilities. "The final decoded message is ready, Dr. Mitchell," Dr. Zhang announced, her own silvery skin gleaming under the lab lights. The transformation had spread beyond the military, as scientists and civilians volunteered to merge with the technology, each bringing new innovations and adaptations. "Show me," Amanda commanded, and the ship's surface came alive with ancient symbols, now perfectly clear to their enhanced consciousness. The message unfolded in their shared awareness. "To the species that awakens this gift, you were chosen not for what you are, but for what you could become." We, the predecessors, searched 1,000 galaxies for a species with the perfect balance of traits: adaptability, creativity, and most importantly, the unshakable will to overcome. Captain Reynolds entered the chamber, her armor now so perfectly merged with her body that it seemed to flow like liquid starlight. "The Nexus fleet is regrouping at the edge of the Orc cloud. Their numbers have tripled." Amanda nodded, unsurprised. "They fear what we're becoming, what we've already become." She gestured to the global display, showing transformed humans achieving things that would have seemed miraculous just months ago. In orbit, the first human-designed living ships were taking shape, grown from merged consciousness and material. Each vessel was unique, reflecting its crew's collective identity and expertise. The Russian pilots had created ships that could phase through dimensional barriers. Chinese vessels could split and recombine at will. American carriers housed entire ecosystems of adaptive technology. "The predecessors didn't just give us weapons," Amanda continued, reading deeper into the message. "They gave us the keys to the next stage of human evolution." The Nexus tried to suppress this technology because they knew it would produce something beyond their control. Through the global neural network, they felt humanity's rapid advancement. Children born to transformed parents showed natural abilities to interface with the material. Each generation would be more adapted, more evolved, more capable of reaching the potential the predecessors had seen in humanity. "There's more to the message," Dr. Zhang pointed out, highlighting a deeper layer of coding. "The predecessors, they're still out there, watching, waiting." Amanda smiled, understanding at last. "We weren't just chosen to receive their legacy. We were chosen to improve it, to take their gift and evolve it into something even they couldn't imagine." The neural network suddenly pulsed with alert signals. The Nexus fleet had begun its advance, their ships darkening the long-range sensors like a metal storm. But this time, Earth was ready. Transformed defenders took their positions, each more powerful and adapted than before. The material had become more than technology. It was part of humanity's new DNA, evolving and improving with every challenge. "They still think this is about weapons," Reynolds observed, her armor rippling with anticipation. "They don't understand what really makes humanity dangerous." Amanda placed her hand on the original ship's hull, feeling the connection to both humanity's past and its unlimited future. "We don't just adapt to survive," she agreed. "We adapt to thrive, to explore, to become more than we are." Through the neural network, she addressed all of transformed humanity. "The predecessors chose us because they saw what the Nexus fears, a species that doesn't just use tools, but transforms them, doesn't just face challenges, but evolves to overcome them. They saw a species that could take their gift and make it into something entirely new." As the Nexus fleet approached, humanity's combined consciousness reached out to the stars, ready not just for battle, but for the next step in their evolution. The material pulsed through their veins like liquid starlight, each human adding their own innovations to its capabilities. The predecessors had given humanity a gift, but what we would become was entirely up to us. And we were just getting started.